Hello everyone and welcome to This Nintendo Life, episode 142. My name is NBZ and I am a certified time traveller. As of this episode that we are recording very early in advance, because right now, Bally, when people are listening to this, you're in Japan, having a great old time eating some food probably.
I am, but I'm not actually right now, if that makes sense. So,
right.
Yeah, it's currently... what's the date today? It's the 16th of April.
Sure.
A bit of PS5 news just came out, and I'm going to Japan this Saturday. So yeah, that's how far in advance we're recording this segment right now.
Exactly, yes. And then we're going to time jump into the next segment when you'll be in Japan.
Right.
So that'll be a fun thing to do. But yeah, how you doing, Bally? How have things been going recently?
I'm very good. Since the last 2 days ago we recorded the last episode.
Good, yes. Lots to catch up on here.
I might have done an entire Fire Emblem Fates Conquest chapter in that time.
Wow. I mean, those take a long time, for sure. They're devious.
They do.
They're tricksy, for sure. Fantastic. Well, we're here once again to talk about Nintendo and video games and everything that we love about all that stuff. So, Bally, why don't you let the people know what it is we're going to be chatting about today?
Sure. So for this first segment, we're going to be talking about the games we have been playing. As you said, for the second segment, me and Caroline are going to put together a little segment while we're in Japan, and that'll slot in nicely into that second segment. And for our third segment, the Jukebox is back. It's been a while, and we thought, you know what? There's a lot of good songs we wanted to cover. Well, certainly I've decided to line up and challenge you with. So that's going to be me challenging you in the Jukebox for the third segment. We should say, for those who don't know what the Jukebox is, one of us tests the other on 5 video game songs, and the other person has to guess what game those songs are from. And we've stuck to Nintendo systems.
It's a good excuse to listen to some game music and chat about the games and test our knowledge at the same time. Fun little format. It's a good time. So look forward to that at the end, but we're going to kick things off right now, right here with video games. Bally, tell me about Undertale. Has it changed your life? Is it one of those games that people should be raving about?
So I went in with incredible high expectations to Undertale, and to be honest, it didn't quite meet those expectations, and maybe those expectations were a little bit high.
I think it's one of those games that just has such a ridiculous fan base and has garnered so much attention over the few years since it's been out, that it is kind of difficult to go into it at this point without knowing, without having that stuff surrounding it. It's very difficult to go in without the baggage, because the baggage just exists for it.
So I knew there was a really hardcore fan base. I sort of knew. I don't how spoilery do I want to be. I don't want to be. I'll be minorly spoilery, I guess. So warnings for that, like tiny just aspects about the game, because it is a good game to go in knowing almost nothing, which is more or less what I did, apart from this one bit I'm about to say. And I knew the idea of. Okay, spoiler warning. Boom. Here we go. Right. I knew the idea of attacking enemies, or the pacifist mode with sparing enemies. So I knew that idea, but beyond that I knew almost nothing. But overall I still thought it was a really cool experience. I think that the fight system is maybe the best bit of the game. I just think it's so... It almost goes back to those original 2D like space shooters, where you're...
it's a bullet hell game, basically.
Right.
It's an RPG where instead of, you choose stuff from a menu as well, but the actual physical act of doing damage to enemies, or in this case more avoiding damage from enemies, because a lot of the time if you are playing this game you're going to try not to kill them. Most people will go in with that playset in mind, just because that's the kind of recommended thing to do with the game. Because if you're attacking an enemy, it's a very kind of basic mini game of hit the button when it gets to the center of the kind of slice screen or whatever. But yes, as you are doing these different things to enemies, are you going to flirt with the enemy? Are you going to charm the enemy? Are you going to each enemy? The thing that is so unique about Undertale is every enemy is so different. They have their own characterization to them, and each move they do, each thing that they have in their arsenal is completely unique to everything else. So you're dodging a variety of weird things constantly,
and that's probably the best bit of the game, because all those enemies are characters, and there's often jokes about other games in there, and there's just these other jokes here and there, and the writing is really strong. I really did enjoy the writing. I think But that strength of writing, I feel, didn't play into an overarching narrative that particularly hooked me.
No,
and then
I think this is the key difference between you and me generally, is like, for me, when it comes to, like, say, the ending of Inside, right, which is something that we're both kind of back and forth on, whereas I'm, like, perfectly fine with it, I really like it, and you're like, where is the resolution to this thing? I am far more willing, and I think this is because I, did a lot of English at university. I'm far more, into symbolism and stuff like that. I'm far more willing to take something that is more about themes and less about plot, I care much more about an interesting thing that is maybe a bit vague than getting a complete resolution to something.
Yeah, I'm totally the opposite. Like, it's plot and resolution above characters and
themes
themes and narrative. Narrative kind of plays into both, but I totally get what you're saying, and I do like a good resolution. Don't get me wrong, there's some games that I think have weaker resolutions but have a good journey that I have still really enjoyed, but by and large I do love that resolution. And narratives like Horizon, where the resolution is like, in my opinion, whoa, that is so cool. Like, it takes the whole game story to a new level for me. And I don't even think Earthbound had much of a resolution, really. But
no, I think that's why I like Earthbound, actually, because it is more a game about themes than it is about narrative. It's far more about surprise and I don't know, like fourth wall breaking in a sense. Like, Earthbound definitely does that right at the end, and I think Undertale is all about fourth wall breaking. Like, that's its main kind of beat, is like, hey, look at this thing that we've done that you didn't expect to happen.
Yeah, and I think Earthbound does that better for me personally, and I just got more out of that game. I think the fact that it's a lot longer means you have more different experiences during that main story, and maybe that played into how much I appreciate that game. Undertale's obviously about a third of the length, if shorter. And
definitely,
I'm not saying I wanted Undertale to be longer. I'm just saying it kind of...
it kind of is longer depending on what you want to do, right? Because if you do go the full pacifist route, it's a completely different ending, it's a completely different thing, and I think what you're looking for, the pacifist ending, kind of does provide that, right? Like, I think that is actual resolution, story resolution, in a far better way than just the regular ending of the game. And then you can go genocide, and that's just insanity.
Right. And like, I looked up all these different endings and plots, and this is me to a T, but like you were describing before, because I was just missing so many beats. Like, this story is actually so much more complex, and there's so much that goes on in characters and things that happens to these characters that I was just missing entirely because it wasn't being overtly told to me. Like, I'm very simple. I like a good story told to me clearly, and this is not what that game was doing. And watching stuff online later, I really realized, wow, like, Game of Thrones is also a good example. Like, I'll miss so much during the episode, and the enjoyment I'm getting from it is almost listening to the podcast about Game of Thrones afterwards, because I'm learning so much more about that lore, that history, the characters,
right?
Far more so than the subtle.
For example, like this is like the minorest of spoilers for Game of Thrones, but if you cared and skip 30 seconds, like the opening of the first episode of season 8, like as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is a direct callback to season 1, the opening of season 1.
I'm just like,
is that something that you pick up on, or is that something that like flies by you?
I thought, this looks familiar, I'm sure it's a reference, but I don't know which reference. And then I listen to the podcast and I'm like, oh, it's a reference to this, and then I get the satisfaction of, oh, that's cool, even though I didn't notice it myself. So like, I'm still gaining
and I think for
something.
me, because I did a lot of English literature and I've done a lot of stuff like that, when I'm watching something, I'm more actively thinking about things like the art of it and like the cinematography and like what they're trying to say, and symbolism, and like reflecting things from before and echoing things. So I don't know, I think for me that's a bit more tuned on when I'm absorbing media.
I enjoy all that stuff on a really surface level, and my brain is just whirring to the end of what's going to be the resolution, what's going to happen. And like I've said, there are games that I think have big resolutions at the end, and so we're talking a lot about narrative, but I think what I got the most out of Undertale was just the quirky writing. And
I think the characters are just really funny. They're just weird and goofy,
it's funny,
and like you go on a date with a skeleton, and like Undyne is this character that is really interesting, and you can do a lot of like extra stuff with like going to her house and things like that afterwards, which I didn't do. But like after I finished this game, I went back and watched a bunch of it. Like I watched the rest of the pacifist ending. I watched what happens with the genocide, which is just terrifying, kind of in a way. And it's a game that it knows what you're doing, like it's a game where if you do the genocide run and try to play it again, it's like there are references in there to be like, no, I know what kind of player you are. You're just kind of player who wants to see everything. It very much kind of gets under your skin in that sense. And it does other things which are fourth wall breaky that we talked about, and it seems like it doesn't work as effectively on consoles as it does on PC, in terms of like the main thing that happens at the end, which I'm a little bummed about because I think kind of is central to what that game is all about.
Sure.
But, that's how it goes.
Yeah,
sometimes.
and you raved about the soundtrack. I really enjoyed the soundtrack.
God. It is the greatest. It's the greatest. It's just the best
it's
soundtrack.
It's a very good soundtrack. I enjoyed it a lot. I wouldn't rate it like in the absolute...
I am willing to bet that this soundtrack will grow on you, because I feel like I was similar, because you can go back and listen to me talking about Undertale on this podcast when it came out, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I thought kind of the end of it got a little bit too bogged down. Like there's a sequence near the end where you're like going on a lot of what do you call them? Not elevators, like floor tiles that like move you. Like there's that section, at the end with the floor tiles where they're moving you like back and forth. And you have to go into these puzzle rooms and like move things around. And I was like, this is getting a bit baggy at the end here in terms of just kind of gameplay puzzly stuff that I don't think the game does particularly well. And even at that point, I was like, yeah, this music's really good. I think it's one of those things that in the years since, it has grown on me so much because those compositions are so incredibly memorable, and you hear them and you just like instantly. They are
very distinctive tunes, definitely. And don't get me wrong, I think a couple of the boss themes are. But about 3 or 4 boss themes were absolutely fantastic, and those boss fights I feel like are the most memorable as well, because they all throw in different mechanics on that system we were talking about before, where it's essentially dodging in a bullet hell, and I've just thought that there's like one, I don't want to spoil too much, but it keeps changing. There's one like where you're deflecting, there's one where you're moving between like 3 bars, and like it just really makes you think. It's like it's action mechanics in the most simplistic of a video game in like, well, it's now 2019. This came out in 2016, I believe. So it's like even the most simple of action mechanics, you can create an incredible game even in 2016. And
it's subversive, right? Because it should be a turn-based RPG where you're picking things from the menu, but you're picking things from a menu, but also you have to do things physically with the stick.
And like I've not played the Mario and Luigi games, for example, where I know that there's a lot of action back and forth.
Yeah, those are so much more simplistic when it comes to stuff, because that is literally just like, when the attack hits, press the button at the right time. It's literally like, as Mario jumps on a Goomba, hit the button in time with him jumping on the Goomba to get more damage. That's literally what that is. And it's the same for defending. There's more nuance to it than that. Like when enemies, some attacks you can dodge completely out the way of if you jump over them and do the timing. But it's completely different to what Undertale tries to achieve, essentially.
But yeah, I did enjoy it overall. I thought it was a really cool experience. I'd love more Earthbound style RPGs that are quirky like this to just come around. I know there's not a ton. I know that there's I've forgotten the name of it. It's that game that was part of a Humble Bundle that I've got my 3DS waiting for me.
Right, Earth something. Earth, not Defense Force. Earth. There's something to do with Earth.
Yeah.
And
Citizens of Earth.
Citizens of Earth. There you go.
That one. The one. Yeah. So might give that a go. I know it didn't review anywhere like as well as Undertale, but it'd be nice to maybe see what that's about. And then obviously there's like the Undertale spin-off, right?
Right, Deltarune, which is actually free on the eShop, so you might as well just download it and go through it. It's a couple hours.
So I'll give that a go at some point and see where I go. But yeah, overall, just some really cool ideas. It didn't quite stick the landing for me, like narrative-wise, like we've said, but like some of those bosses, the way that it mixes up the battles, and it's a cool experience overall. I'm glad I played it. That's Undertale. I've also been playing Fire Emblem Fates Conquest. Gone back to that, started my game again.
Yeah, because you got 10 chapters in and you're like, I can't do this because it's not on casual and I need help. Help me.
So I went down to casual and I'm already on chapter 11 or 12, I think.
Cool.
So yeah, planning on with that. I'll talk about that when I've beaten it. And the Apex Legends train continues to roll. I've been playing a little bit almost every day, and I'm getting better. It's good fun. I'm really enjoying it.
They said it wasn't possible to capture Bally with a games as a service, but look at us now.
I'm just waiting for that. When that crossplay comes, I'm going to be nagging you constantly. Like, we've got to get on this. Let's go on this.
No excuses after that. Zero excuses. For sure. Yeah. Fantastic.
MBZ, what have you been playing?
So, I've been playing a game that will be released by the time this podcast comes out, but is not currently released as of talking.
Not breaking the embargo.
Not breaking any embargoes.
You're breaking it with me.
Yes, exactly. So, Bally, don't tell anyone what I'm saying.
I'm not going to tell anyone. Won't tell us all.
So, I got an early code for the next game from Image & Form, SteamWorld Quest, which is pretty exciting because I like their game generally. I think as a podcast, we are not as overly over the moon about things like SteamWorld Dig 2.
People went into meltdown on SteamWorld Dig 2.
They did, yeah. Like Giant Bomb loved it. IGN people loved it. I really like SteamWorld Dig 2. It didn't quite hit like the top of my list for like the year it came out, but excellent game. Really respect those guys. Like what they do. And this is a bit more up my alley, I would say. Not that the other games weren't, because like the other games was a Metroid game basically. But this is an RPG. It's a turn-based RPG, and I went into this being like kind of skeptical because it's card-based, right? And I've played a couple of card games in the past. I played quite a bit of Hearthstone for a while and enjoyed that and thought, it's really cool. And the thing about card games, Mark Brown did a very good video on this, is about synergies, right? And like finding combinations with different cards to put them together, like deck building, finding combos, like the meta game essentially, which is something I'm also very into because I played a bunch of competitive Pokemon, which is all about team building, knowing moves that combine well together to create synergies. So I love synergies. I love stuff like that. But I haven't played a lot of games where like the combat is based on cards. So I feel like for me it's more an ignorance thing that I was just like a little bit anti it because I've not done stuff like it before. And hey, turns out I'm wrong because SteamWorld Quest and its combat system is fucking awesome.
Hadn't you played the Paper Mario with the cards and that put you off?
Well, I mean, you can't really compare Sticker Star because Sticker Star's just a bad fucking video game.
Okay.
Like, Sticker Star, the problem with it is that there's no XP. So there's literally no point to fight anything because you're not getting experience points. It's not really an RPG and like it's using these stickers as your weapons, but really you're better off just not even fighting anything and just saving weapons for boss fights, which are mandatory.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe you could say that put me off, but also like that game's not even an RPG at this point. Like that series isn't an RPG, and it hasn't been since the GameCube with Thousand Year Door. I mean, to some degree the Wii game is, but also the Wii game tried some more platforming elements as well. So yeah, it's kind of been mixed up for a while with that series, but the way this game works is that you start with two characters, and you build up, like you get a party, obviously. I thought that there would just be three main characters. I have just got a fourth, which has been really, really cool and very interesting. But each character has their own set of cards. And these cards range in terms of like, debuffing cards, attack cards, cards which do a lot more damage but have a certain cost to them. So the idea is that there's this meter along the top of the screen that is a bunch of cogs. And it's kind of like a mana bar is how I would describe it, where in order to play a card that has a cost associated with it, you have to build up cogs on the top. So you have like regular cards, so just like a standard sword attack. When you attack with a standard sword, you'll get one cog filled in on your bar. And you can play 3 cards in one turn. So the idea is like you could do cards from one character, one from another, and one from a third. And you could be like, okay, I'm going to use a sword attack on this dude. Then my mage is going to use a card which increases her magic. And then I'm going to finish it with a spell. But the spell costs a certain amount to use. So the cogs at the top of the screen, say you have a spell that is costing 2 cogs, you won't be able to play that card unless you have 2 cogs available to spend. So it's basically about banking up all this mana and then spending it on certain attacks. And that's a really cool system because it's a lot of using what's available to you and trying to work around to create combos, to create situations where it will be a favorable outcome. So, for example, your main character is just this sword-based character, and if you do 3 attacks or 3 cards, if you play 3 cards that she uses, then she'll get a bonus attack on the end. So you could be like, I'll use a sword, then I will boost myself with like attack power, then I'm going to use this special attack that costs 2 cogs. And then if that happens, then you get a bonus attack on the end, which you heal yourself and then you do another attack. So you can get 4 attacks in one turn, even though you've only played 3 cards. It works similarly for the mage character, but her bonus at the end is that she creates a shield for the entire party. So if you can do 3 spells for her, and then at the end of that turn, it'll add a 4th card, which will give you basically a mana shield, which is like the HP bar goes blue, and it's like this little extra bit of HP for all 3 characters to give them a bit more protection. And so it's a lot of the game is maneuvering your party members to get into situations where they can pull off those special attacks, to have them happen. And it's obviously random, right? Because the cards you pull out are randomly generated from your pack and what you choose to put in your deck. So sometimes you'll be in a situation where you don't actually have 3 cards from a character to play. So you'll have to be like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to play the skull, which reduces my enemy's attack. Then I'm going to play this card, which heals one of my party members. Then I'm going to play another card, which just does a bit of damage. And that turn may not necessarily be a damage dealing really powerful turn, but you will have built up some cogs by doing that, by just playing these cards. So,
and can you edit your deck?
Yes, you can.
Right.
Yes. So you can't do it mid battle, but you collect cards as you go along. So you'll find treasure chests as you're going around. I should say the setup of the game is not really your traditional RPG. It is kind of split into screens and areas that you go between, and it's very segmented. So you look at the map and it kind of shows you just little blocks of rooms, and the first few chapters are very, very short. Like there's only like 9 or 10 rooms total, and you could go up, down, left, right, whatever. There's kind of secret places you go to. Sometimes you'll come across difficult enemies that are guarding treasure chests, but essentially you get new cards by you can buy them, you can craft them, or you can find them in the world in treasure chests and things like that. And I think the tricky thing for me initially was figuring out like what are good cards that combine well together, and what is a good setup, right? Because if you have a deck that is full of cog cards, which cost cogs to use, and you don't have any cards that give you cogs, then you're not going to be able to use any of those cards.
Like energy and Pokemon cards.
Right, exactly. You're not going to be able to use any of those
building,
moves because you're not building up enough energy to use them. So you have to have that balance. Yeah, exactly. I think you'll really like it because it really has that balance. And I'm less into deck building. I know you are much more into that when it comes to Pokemon. But it can be tricky because there are so many cards on offer and you only have 8 total in each deck. So you have a maximum of 8 cards. That means you can have multiples. So you can say, I want to have 3 basic sword attacks, but then you only have 5 other cards to deal with for your main character.
Have you heard of a game called Dominion?
I have heard of it. I've not played it before, I don't think.
So it's all about deck building, but you basically build a deck during the game, and then you are using your deck to win at the game. And it's just that balance of your ability. You're basically creating cards in your deck to access victory points, and it's all about being able to draw more points, gain more money, use that money to buy more cards. And then there's also cards, like the most powerful card in the game is actually called a chapel, and it gives you the ability to trash cards from your deck. And the idea of that is that you are purifying your deck so that you can access the cards that you want more often. So
right,
I mean, that's obviously a much bigger deck than 8 cards like you're suggesting, but I don't know. I'm just loving the sound of this.
I mean, each character has 8 cards, right? So like each character has 8, so you can use a maximum of 3 characters at a time. So you have access to like a good amount, right? Overall, the thing is that you will often find cards that are quite situational. So there'll be one that is, okay, if you're like under 30% health, then this would be a good one. And that's good if you are building a deck around that, like having a deck based around your characters being on low health so you can take advantage of the more powerful hits. Cool, but I'm not just going to throw that card in randomly unless I've thought about it. Or like poison. Like, will I bring a poison card into a boss fight? I don't know if poison is a thing that, usually status effects on bosses in RPGs, not something that generally works. So it's all about thinking, like, what is best for this specific situation, and generally I've been rolling with stuff which is good for like general mobs. So you have some cards that are like AoE that will like hit multiple characters, multiple enemies, some that are kind of focused in, and yeah, it's fun to play around with. And I think for me, I had slipped into a rhythm of like kind of using the same cards for a while, and it was starting to get a little bit stale. But I think the idea is that you should be switching things up and trying different things, because it is so fun to mess around with them and see what works for you and what you particularly like strategy wise. And just when I was getting to the point where I was like, oh, okay, like these 3 characters, I kind of know what they do, they introduce a 4th character, and I'm like, oh wow, he's completely different, has a completely new set of mechanics all to his own, and completely changed things. And so now I'm like learning him and really getting into those things that he's kind of brought to the table. So it definitely feels like I'm 4 hours in at the moment. I'm on chapter 5, I think. And I don't know how long it is, but I feel like this will probably be at least like 15 to 20 hours or so.
Cool.
And it's freaking fantastic. And the thing is, like, there's not much more in terms of like outside of combat. The game there's not a lot of exploration. I've kind of got to a point now that it is a bit more puzzle based, but it's more about like, okay, just find the levers to open this door, and you're kind of going in 2 directions and you know where to go. So it's not really, the difficulty isn't in finding a place, it's more about maintaining your health and your resources. Because one of the interesting things the game does actually, which I really like, is when you get to, there's a statue which can heal your whole party. But if you heal the whole party, all the enemies in the area respawn. So every enemy will respawn again, which to some degree is good because you can grind, right? Like, it gives you the ability to grind. And if you want to, like, you can chapter select, so you can go back to a previous chapter if you didn't collect all the treasure there. So you can go and find stuff that you've missed before. So it's a lot of flexibility there, but that's the idea of, like, you could just go to the statue and heal yourself, but then all the enemies are going to come back. And it's striking that balance of whether I want to do that or whether I want to make sure that my party has enough healing before it goes into a specific fight, have enough items and stuff like that. So that stuff is really cool. And one of the other things that I love, that I did a video on this for like to go up on embargo. So if you've watched that, you'll have already heard this. But when you have party members that die, they still gain experience after the battle. And it is one of my pet peeves in RPGs, is if a party member dies, they get 0 experience. And this will happen often. Happened to me so much in Dragon Quest XI.
Because they probably died because they're the weakest unit, and you want the weakest unit to gain the most XP.
Exactly. And this happened to me constantly in Dragon Quest XI, where a character who I was lower leveled and I wanted to level up was in a boss fight, literally the last turn, dies. On that same turn, I kill the boss, and I don't have a chance to revive them, and they get 0 XP, and everyone else gets like 26,000 experience. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, it is the most frustrating thing in the universe, and thankfully this game doesn't do that. Like, because I fought a boss and I only had 2 characters left, and everyone got the same XP at the end of the fight, and I was like, I don't really say it out loud, I don't think about it when I'm talking about games, but it is one of those pet peeves, and to see it rectified here is just great. It's like one of those obvious things that, like, if I was to make a game, it's one of those things I would personally put in there. I'm very thankful Image and Form have done that. And they don't get it perfect, right? Because when you have a 4th party member, they're still lagging a little bit behind. They'll still gain experience, but they won't gain as much as your core party members. So you will still, have to balance it out a little bit. If you want to have all your characters same level, you're going to have to switch them out a bit. But it's not too bad. Like, it's not too drastic in terms of the drop off. So yeah. And it looks great, man. It looks fucking awesome on Switch. Handheld, I've been playing mostly, but it looks really great on the screen as well. Great animations. Like, the characters are really fleshed out, and I think that you really see that art design team getting to flex in the Switch era. I thought SteamWorld Dig 2 was a great looking game. I think this looks even better, and it's just that idea that they started kind of on 3DS, so they had limited power and resources to make things look good. Now their games can really just can fly. So
solid.
So yeah, I'm loving it so far. Really, really great. Definitely for me, my favorite SteamWorld game to this point. So high recommendation. I'd say check it out. So yeah, cool. Well, that is going to close us out for video games we have been playing. Do not go anywhere, because we'll be back after this break with Bally in Japan. See you in a sec.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. It's me, Bally, and I'm actually in Japan, so it's a bit of a TARDIS jump on the podcast on today's episode. I am joined by, I was going to say my girlfriend Caroline, but that we have some exciting news. Are you excited to be on the podcast again, Caroline?
Yes, I'm very excited to be here. I'm very happy to be in Japan and taking part in this special episode with you.
So yeah, we've been in Japan about 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
So we're currently in Gifu, which is just a little town north of Nagoya, and we've already been to Osaka, Hiroshima, where am I forgetting? Well, those are the two places we've stayed, and then we've done day trips from those places. Okayama as well. We've not stayed in Hiroshima, we stayed in Okayama and Osaka. Caroline, do you have a highlight of the holiday so far?
I have 2 highlights. One, of course, is you proposing to me, so I'm now engaged to Bally, which is very happy news.
Do you want to tell the full story?
Do I tell the picture version of the story? Or
No, the real story. That everyone knows that's just a staged photo.
Okay, the real version is... so we flew from Edinburgh to Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam all the way through to Osaka, which was a sort of like just over 10 hours long flight, super exhausting. We didn't sleep very well, but Bally was being super, super nice and sweet the whole time, so I was a bit suspicious. And we got to the hotel. We weren't supposed to get our room yet. Bally nearly cried, so I asked the receptionist and had to pay some money so that we could get in the room early. We had a nap. We were so out of it, so groggy. Woke up and just super, super jet lagged. And then Bally said, "Oh, I've got something to give you." And then he asked me to marry him. So
yeah, exciting. I thought Japan was the best place to do it, so that's some exciting news to start the segment with. So we'll get into some other things we've been up to.
Well, my second highlight of the holiday, we did an incredible cycle ride day before yesterday. I'm afraid I might end up saying it wrong, but it's the Shimanagawa cycle ride.
Well, the places it's from, we basically got a train from Okayama to Imabari, which is on the Tokushima Island. Is that right?
No, it's not. That's the region.
That's the region. So it's basically like the main southern island of Japan, sort of central to the inland sea, Shikoku.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a Shikoku Island, and we got a train from Okayama, which is between Hiroshima and Osaka, and then we got the train from Okayama to Imabari to this island, and then there's a series of islands that links you back to the mainland of Japan, and the town we were aiming to get to was Onomichi, so it was a
a 77-kilometer cycle from Imabari to Onomichi across a series of 6 islands, and then you're back onto the mainland. And they're all these islands are connected via a series of bridges. I think the longest suspension bridge in the entire world is the bridge we went on at the start.
Yeah.
It's a long bridge, basically, but so that was the start of the cycle, and yeah, 77 kilometers. I've not done a ton of running recently, and I'm really not a cyclist. I've not cycled in a very long time, and it was hard work. We're now 2-3 days later, and I've still got sunburn on my hands. My bum is still in agony. My legs have loosened off a bit, but how did you find the cycle, Caroline?
I mean, yeah, I'll be honest, it was super painful. And yeah, in addition to what you've said, I've got sore palms, just the general achiness in your back and that. But honestly, it was one of the most incredible days I think we've had together, let alone not even just in Japan, just for how stunning it was. The scenery is just these tiny islands, and they're just all these like conical shaped mountains, and the inland sea is beautiful. I don't know, it was just awe-inspiring, and I think part of what made it so epic was like how scary it was knowing we were trying to cycle so far, and how tired we got, because every bridge had a massive hill leading up to it. So yeah, it was super hard work, but so worth it.
So I did a tweet with some of the pictures, but to try and describe it on a podcast isn't really doing it justice. And I've read it described as these primeval forests that essentially most of the islands in the inland sea have, which really feel like Jurassic Park kind of like islands, and they are very mountainous, as Caroline said. And you were just riding on these bridges between these islands, and there's a lot of uphill and downhill to get on and off the bridges. Like, it's an incredibly impressive. And this is something.
Views too. Sorry, just to say the views when you're up on these bridges of the seas and the mountains, just incredible.
But yeah, I've been impressed by the infrastructure generally across everywhere in Japan, to be honest. And these bridges are a good example of that, where there's so many like shipyards and industry hidden in some of the bays and the coves of these islands that you do pass, and it's just crazy how much development there is on all these small islands with fairly small populations. It seems like there are people living on these islands, but they're obviously nothing like as densely populated as the cities, and it's just a really great way of seeing, well, many have said the most beautiful part of Japan. It's definitely the most beautiful part I've seen. Not that I've seen a ton of Japan, but it was incredibly spectacular. And we were lucky enough to get some good weather where it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cool. And I think spring or probably autumn as well are probably perfect times to do this cycle. But if you're thinking about a trip to Japan, it is the best thing I think I've done in Japan so far. And 77 kilometers isn't easy, but if you start early, give yourself lots of breaks. You can always walk your bike up the hills, because we certainly did by the end.
Only once though.
Only once, yeah. Not every island, just once. I would highly recommend it. A highlight of the holiday so far. And yeah, sitting on that train from Onomichi back to Okayama and our hotel at the end of the day, we felt very satisfied and accomplished.
And exhausted.
Yeah, and exhausted. And then I got back, got the after sun on my hands, and yeah, oh god, we were in a lot of pain, but had some ramen, went to bed, and recovered the next day. Any other highlights of things we've done so far? Shall we talk about Hiroshima? Mm-hmm. First of all, I should say Okayama is a fantastic city that's between, like I said, it's between Hiroshima, and it's actually between Kobe and Hiroshima, but it's well worth checking out because it's a great hub of a city to go. You can go to you can day trip to Kobe, Osaka, Hiroshima. You can see that island, the name I've forgotten of, Shikoku. It's really easy to just visit all these places from Okayama, and if you do have the rail pass, which I'd recommend any tourist to get, it's well worth checking out just because you can get a train to any of these places in a really easy day trip. But anyway, one of these day trips that we did from Okayama was to Hiroshima. And obviously Hiroshima, very famous for the nuclear bomb that went off in 1945, back at the end of World War II. And obviously we knew about the memorial site, and we should say that there's a dome that houses, it's basically the epicenter of where the bomb went off, and
well, except the bomb did go off
600 meters above.
Yeah. What they were calling it? Not quite the epicenter. It had a different name, like the with an H. The
hemisphere. Yeah, you're right. I can't remember what it's called.
But they had a special word for basically being like underneath where the bomb had gone off without it having the ground.
Right. And so it went off 600 meters above this dome point, and surprisingly the core of the building remained standing, so that's sort of where the main focus of the memorial is. But then there's this island that you get a bridge across to, and I think this was the first day in 2 years it was opened. Did you read?
Well, the island had been open, but the whole island, well, I'm not even sure if it's an island or not. You just cross a river over to it, but I mean, it might be. But there's a whole park. It's called like the Peace Memorial Park or something. There's different memorial statues, and then there's the museum that is a real, there we go, Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, and the museum just absolutely blew us away. And yeah, looking it up afterwards, I saw that it was the first day that it had been fully opened in a couple of years that we were there.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where you know about it, you know that hundreds of thousands of people died, but you still don't really prepare yourself to go into an exhibit like the one we did. So we had an audio guide, and the tour basically takes you through the events with the audio guide, and it's a lot more graphic and more detailed than perhaps I thought it was going to be, and it's definitely done to shock you, but it's done to reflect events accurately, and it's quite, we were left feeling pretty raw and shaken from all of it, and I think you are left feeling very, very, very anti-nuclear weapons, and very much like how in our daily lives can we go about making the world a nuclear free place, I think was how I felt personally. But it's done incredibly well. I think the audio guide was really, it's all so cheap to go in. I think it's just a few hundred yen or something, which is not much at all, just a few pounds. And it's well worth checking out, but do be prepared. It is a lot to take in. And we did it as like a morning thing, and it's definitely a good sort of few hours that you want to spend either afternoon or morning. And yeah, definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah, I agree. They had this sign just before we went in saying, it contains some disturbing images and that teachers and parents should prepare children before they went in. But, bloody hell was I in a bad way in there. But it was just so incredible. They sort of collect any sort of memorial artifacts, I guess, from the day or from families that might donate. I mean, there were clothes that people were, in when the bomb dropped, and it was harrowing, but it was important that we saw it, and I thought they did a fantastic job of curating the information.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we move on to what we saw later that day?
Yes.
So, we went to so I'm looking at the island names. So we went to Itsukushima Island, which is, well, you can either get a long ferry, which I think takes about 45 minutes from Hiroshima and Kos, or if you have the JR pass, like I've already mentioned, you can get an included train from Hiroshima around the west coast down to, I can't remember the name of this town, Miyajimaguchi. Yeah, that's the one, Miyajimaguchi. And then you get a very short ferry from Miyajimaguchi across to Miyajima, which, as I said, is on the island of Itsukushima. And this is basically another island in the inland sea, and it's got the famous, is it called the Nori, the Itsukushima floating torii gate. So this is the red gate that's in the middle of the water, and you can basically walk up to it and see it, and that's where we took the photo with the ring and stuff for our engagement. And it was a really nice way to spend the afternoon, to just walk around the island. And the gate itself is actually, they say it's the floating gate, but there's a thing next to it saying that it basically goes deep into the ground to stop it floating away, obviously. So that's a bit of a myth.
Well, I think the point is that it looks like it's floating.
Yeah,
they were ever claiming that it was floating.
It does look like it's floating. And when the tide wasn't out when we were there, but when it is out, you can actually walk up to the gate, which is kind of cool. And it's just a really beautiful part of Japan, as we've already said, and well worth checking out. And
the deer, don't forget the deer.
Yeah, there's loads of deer everywhere. I personally felt like I'd had this experience a bit with our previous trip to Japan, where we went to the town of Nara, which is sort of the traditional capital of Japan, and there's basically deer everywhere. There were deer on this island, not to quite the same number, but they are very friendly. They're very much like desensitized to humans and just want to come up and eat everything and grab onto things. You really do need to look out. But yeah, definitely good. Like we copied this day from a channel we watch on YouTube. It's this guy called Chris Broad, and he does Abroad in Japan, and he basically recommended a day in Hiroshima, and we basically copied his day. So
you should copy it too. It's really
you should
fun.
copy it too. So it's a morning where you visit the memorial center, and then in the afternoon you visit
Miyajima.
Miyajima on Itsukushima Island. That's the one, right? Great. Well, that's a couple of things we've been up to. We also went to Osaka Aquarium. That's a pretty cool aquarium. Not a whole lot to say necessarily about it. We've done a day trip to Kurashiki, which is a small town just outside of Okayama, actually.
It's all very traditional.
Very traditional. It's like the Venice of Japan. It's very picturesque. We only spent a few hours there, and I think you could spend more time there. We'd recommend that as well. We've been to Okayama Castle, went to Osaka Castle, bit castled out. They all look quite similar, the castles.
Yeah, the one in Okayama is called Crow Castle because it's black, so that was why that was special. Right,
and actually I think both Osaka Castle and Okayama Castle were destroyed through fire bombs in World War II and have been rebuilt since. It would be something interesting to look up is how many of the castles are actually thousands of years old, hundreds of years old.
I know the one in Osaka had been destroyed at some other point hundreds of years ago as well, so I imagine most of them have been destroyed and rebuilt at some point.
That's the thing when you make your castles out of wood instead of
set them on fire.
Brick. Yeah. So yeah, that's some things we've been up to. We've been playing a few video games as well, I've been doing video game things. Quickly mention that we've not got to Tokyo and are visiting again of Akihabara, the Akihabara area. So definitely more games and things to play. We did try. I've forgotten the name of this drum game. It's a famous drum game in Japan, but it's basically traditional drums. And it's like Donkey Konga. You play the drums in time with the music. It's a rhythm game, and we had a go on our day trip to Hiroshima, and it was fun.
It was quite a good way of. We did it quite soon after the shock of the Memorial Museum. I was still feeling a bit, cut up and raw and basically guilty that anything like this could ever have happened to someone. And so going into an arcade and playing this rhythm game was like a really good way of just bringing us back to the present moment and to modern day Japan, like having a laugh.
Yeah, and it's a cool game. You can definitely hit the drums pretty damn hard, and it's kind of part of the game, which is cool. I didn't find it particularly difficult, actually. I think we get 3 songs for like 100 yen or something crazy cheap.
100 yen each.
100 yen each, like 200 yen for 3 songs, which is pretty cool. And there's all the anime classics in there, not that I know any of them, and a lot of J-pop. And yeah, I think I found it quite easy because we started on easy, and then your drum wasn't properly working,
No.
Caroline. Like you weren't able to select between difficulties, so I moved up to hard as you went on. Anyway, it was complicated. It was a lot of fun. It's a cool thing to check out. Might have a look at the arcades in Akihabara.
But the only thing is like the volume of noise in these places. So the drum game was alright, but it really did blare out the noise when it started. But I was just thinking of in Okayama, we'd walk down this sort of pedestrian street to go find places for dinner, and they had a big pachinko sort of gambling area. And it seemed really quiet, but it's because they had 2 sets of doors, and the second someone walked out as we were walking by, it was just like, like such a blast of noise.
A wall of noise.
It's just like, how is this relaxing for anybody? It would make me
think
really angry.
As much as I'm keen to give pachinko and more arcades a go, the amount of noise in those arcades and often a lot of smoke in many of them, it's quite off-putting. You really need to go for it, or maybe it'd be ideal to have someone with you who knows how the damn things work and how to do it. But so
maybe have a drink or 2 first, like.
Right. And yeah, I've been playing a lot of Cuphead. I will talk about in depth into that next episode. I brought the Switch and the 3DS, which was quite bold of me to bring on the plane. Caroline's had to deal with me playing Cuphead, which I think is a challenge in and of itself, because I've been very much banging my head up against a brick wall on many of those bosses, and I've beaten the game now, which is good. But what's it like being engaged to someone who's addicted to a bit of Cuphead while on holiday in Japan?
Well, I mean, it's good in the sense it keeps you quiet, but the trouble. But the trouble is when you go down those rabbit holes of, oh, I nearly got him, like, I just want to finish this boss. You get really cranky, and so just having a little chat with you, maybe I'm looking at the guidebook, maybe I'm trying to figure out what we'll do that day, and you don't want to talk to me, or I get snapped at for distracting you. So yeah, you're a bit of a diva when you play Cuphead.
There you go. Heard it here first. Don't want to mess with me when I'm facing a boss in Cuphead. So yeah, shall we talk about some of the food? We save the best till last. This is the real reason that I've come to Japan. We've come to Japan. It's all about the food.
It's not just it's also about the beautiful scenery.
No, it's all about the food. So I think one thing we did this time, which is different to last time, is we've come. Like, we're spending a lot more time in Osaka. We've already had 4 days in Osaka. We're going to have another 2 days in Osaka at the end of the holiday. And Osaka is nicknamed Japan's kitchen. And I think when you're on holiday somewhere, and I feel like the first thing I always want to experience is food. And I've been craving Japanese authentic food for a while now in the run up to this holiday. And I've been like, right, need to eat some food. So I think we went really hard on the food for like the first 3 days in Osaka. And we went to the sushi go-around we actually went to previously when we had a day trip to Osaka last vacation. I slipped into American. A holiday in Japan. And it's called like Dotonbori Daiki Susan. So it's just a sushi go-around, which was obviously invented in Osaka, so it's a big deal there. And this was one that was recommended in a guidebook that we used last time. We're also using this time, and that's the best sushi like I've ever had. It is top notch. One dish in particular was the bluefin tuna collar toro, and like, so I think I mentioned this last time we were in Japan, but like, fat content in meats, so both fish and beef and I guess pork, like it's quite a big deal here. So the more fatty something is, it's actually more valuable. And when I say fatty, I mean like marbled through the meat. So like there's this marbled tuna, and I think collar toro is like, it's the fatty cut of tuna. So you can like have one big tuna, there's like a lean cut which is worth less than the fatty cut. So this fatty cut, so for 500 yen, you got this nigiri, and I've put an image on Twitter as well, but it's like it's a huge slab of fish with a little bit of rice, and it's like them pretending it's nigiri when in reality it's closer to sashimi because it's just one big chunk of fish, and it is such high quality. Like it genuinely tastes like melt on your tongue kind of feeling, like you would have with beef, but this was fish, like this was tuna. And often in the UK, and I know this is an opinion of MBZ, is that he thinks that salmon sushi tastes better than tuna sushi when you're in the UK. And like I would have to agree, actually. I think salmon, when you're having it quite lean, like almost all sushi is in the UK, it's more tasty than tuna, which is quite... Lean tuna is quite tasteless, in my view. But when you're in Japan, when you're having the fatty tuna, when you're having the proper stuff, the fatty tuna tastes absolutely insane, and I would highly recommend it. So we had the equivalent of something like 15 plates, and that cost us the equivalent of £27. So that's only like a couple of quid less than that per plate. And when you compare that to the Yo Sushi in the UK, where you're paying £3.50, £4, £5, £6 for the plates, you can get to 40, 50, 60 quid at Yo Sushi pretty damn easily.
You can.
I can. And yeah, so I had an absolute whale of a time with the sushi go around. Caroline, you've reached a theory with your what you like sushi. Do you want to explain how you found the sushi go around?
I mean, I do like the sushi go round, but I got a bit ambitious on the first night there, and I've managed to sort of put myself off sushi again. I'm not the biggest sushi person, is the trouble. And then Bally asked me what kind of sushi I do like when we were talking about it afterwards, and I would describe myself as a fan of basic white girl sushi. So preferably it has a bit of mayo, maybe it's cooked. Those are my favourites, but I did try some cuttlefish sushi, and that was too ambitious.
Yeah, cuttlefish is really like it's almost like a more rubbery squid that tastes a bit more fishy. I quite liked it, but I can see why you were a bit put off.
It was more just the amount of chewing it required, like it just wasn't going away, and I didn't really feel like I could spit it discreetly anywhere, so I just had to keep on going.
So after sushi on the first night, we went for takoyaki, which is another Osaka invention, and there's loads of, down at Dotonbori, there's loads of street food, loads of different takoyaki vendors. We trusted the takoyaki vendor with the biggest red octopus, plastic red octopus, I should say, outside their stall, and it was, I think it was like 750 yen for like 8 balls each, so we went a bit hardcore.
I like how you say we when it's you who went up to get it, but yeah.
Well, I went for the smallest option that they served, so it's not my fault that they served. Yeah, that was the small. No, large would have been like 16, 18 balls or something. Yeah. So takoyaki is deep fried octopus balls with, it's like this garlic mayo, what many people call like Japanese Worcester sauce. Really need to find out the proper name for that stuff. Bonito fish flakes, and then powdered like seaweed on top of that for like seasoning, and it tastes fantastic. These are also like the base ingredients of okonomiyaki, which is a huge dish in Osaka as well, which is, it's less balls of batter, it's more just a full-on pancake, and then in the pancake you often have beef, pork, seafood, and then it's the similar topping, so it's that mayonnaise, it's the Worcester sauce, it's the fish flakes and the seaweed. And okonomiyaki, so we went for okonomiyaki for lunch the next day, I should say, and okonomiyaki is like, in Osaka, there's not noodles in it. It's very much like an omelette, essentially.
And one of the differences that they mix all the ingredients up together. before they pour it out in the teppan, whereas in Hiroshima it all sort of just gets thrown on layer by layer.
Right. So part of Chris Broad's recommendation for Hiroshima was checking out Okonomiyaki Mura, which is like this. It's like this. It's on the first floor for Brits, second floor for Americans of this area in Hiroshima. And yeah, as Caroline mentioned, Hiroshima okonomiyaki is basically all mixed on the teppans and often has noodles in it. And I actually think it tasted better. I definitely...
I like a bit of noodles in my okonomiyaki. Kind of, otherwise it does feel a little bit too much like an omelette.
Yeah, definitely. And also okonomiyaki, I don't know why, but it's just always so big. Like, it's so big and filling. And like often in Japan, a lot of dishes are not... The portions aren't crazy big. They're much more moderate. I mean, some of the portions we've had are pretty big, actually. But
like, if you buy a large, it really is large. But if you get a regular portion, it's much more reasonable.
Yeah. So yeah, okonomiyaki would highly recommend. So yeah, our first few days in Osaka, we just went really big on the food and
the jet lag.
And the jet lag. My God, we were like midday napping for like a week. And our bodies were thinking that midday nap was
real sleep.
Nighttime, like real sleep. So when you woke up, it was like waking up from. It's like being woken up in the middle of the night, and then when we were sleeping at night, our bodies thought that was like an afternoon nap. So when you woke up in the middle of the night at like 4 a.m., you'd be wide awake, and it's anyway, nightmare. Back to the food. Again, been having onigiri almost every day for breakfast. There's 7-Elevens, Family Marts, Lawson's, absolutely everywhere.
And a real big bonus for me is that the Japanese seem to be as obsessed by custard as I am. So I am sampling all of the sort of bakery goods that have custard in. It's freaking amazing.
There's a good donut chain we've seen a few of called Mr. Donut. Great name. I
even got some pens with Mr. Donut on, but we got that in the tax-free shop, so I can't use them yet.
Yeah, that was something we should mention as well. Yeah, loads of food. Often the best food has been the smaller places. Like, we've been to some really small ramen joints. One was recommended in the guide and online in Osaka. That was very good. Again, we've been to another couple of ramen joints. One in Okayama, one in Kurashiki. Both of them were very good. And it's nice trying the different, because every town apparently has like a specific way they do ramen, whereas the broth is different. They put different vegetables in, different meats in, and it's good fun to like try them all out. But the ones we've had so far have been pretty spicy, which is quite nice. What other foods have we had? We've been to like some of the best food is the small places in just a really simple place like in a station, for example. And you see this a lot in Japan, where the entire restaurant is just a bar, and often there might be two people in the bar. One.
Oh, you say bar, but I mean they're not necessarily like alcohol.
No, not a bar as in.
Just that you sit.
You sit at a bar. And eat. And they're often manned by 2 or 3 people max. One person is usually waiter, waitress style person who is welcoming you in, and she's often doing all the money transferring and also washing up and
helping you sit.
And prepping and helping you sit and prepping some of the food, I think. And then you've got the chef, where he or she, well, it's almost always a he in Japan.
I've seen some she's.
Not many, but I see what you're saying. And he or she is often just prepping all the food. So it's just like a really cool, efficient way of, I guess, getting through people and serving some really great food. Like we've had a really nice tempura with just a rice base and just all the sauces that are put on it. You just don't get that at all in any Japanese places in the UK, and it's just such a refreshing, like, even the smallest place that you think looks really average is often incredible tasting food. Like, we haven't had a bad meal yet. We maybe had like...
Close.
Not even close. We maybe had like 1 or 2 total on our last holiday in 2017, and this time...
And that was pretty much when we were forced to get Western food because of things not being open.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're a bit wiser as well now. We know what we're looking for.
I think so.
Yeah, we know what we like. We know what we're looking for. And yeah,
I'm quite bored. We just wander on in. Don't have an English menu. No bother.
Also went to a very nice teppanyaki place in Okayama that was recommended in the guide. It was quite pricey, it's quite Western aimed. It's like trying to be Japanese French was a bit strange, but I had some very nice beef there. I don't think it was I think it was Wagyu beef, but it wasn't like an incredibly expensive cut of Wagyu beef. But I would like to maybe try going to somewhere a bit more pricey and try some of that proper Kobe Wagyu beef. If we can, but I've also been gone from sushi for about 6-7 days now, so that's our main focus now, to get back on that sushi go around. We identified one here in Gifu that we're keen to check out, but yeah, I think that's going to be a bit of a wrap. Last thing we should mention, we were having left Joy-Con issues. I'm sure I'll mention it on the next show as well. Both our Switches were having Joy-Con issues, so we were like, right, we're going to track down some Joy-Con in Japan, see if it's cheap. And we went to a big department store and actually did find some cheap Joy-Con. They were the equivalent of £52 without tax. And that's the important bit, is that without tax is great for tourists. But it means that when you buy them, you're not, because they're worried about you selling on your bargain to a local or people locally, you're not allowed to actually open what you buy until you're out of the country. And
it's all very serious. Like, they check your passport. She swiped my passport. She had a really good look at it, compared it to something on the screen. And then once I paid for the goods, she stamped in my passport around a receipt, and the receipt is still in my passport. So, like, you know they're going to check when we go to leave, like, where's this stuff and have you opened it? And that's a bit scary. Yeah,
it was all quite scary, but hey, we saved a good tenner or so at least. So definitely worth it. And we've got...
My pens got sealed away as tax-free as well, because I stupidly bought them at the same time. So no Mr. Donut pen for me.
You saved like 3 or 4 yen on each pen.
So worth it.
Which was very funny. So yeah, those are our sealed away Joy-Cons that we've got ready for Scotland when we eventually get back to Scotland. And yeah, so very quickly, we've got a few more days here in Gifu. Then we're going to, I can never remember the name of this town. We're going to a town just at the base, near the base of Mount Fuji, for a couple of nights. And then we've got 4 nights in Tokyo. We've also got a baseball game booked that I'm excited to go and see. And then we've got a couple of nights in Osaka at the very end, where I'll definitely be going back to that sushi go round. And then we're flying back to Edinburgh via Amsterdam on May the 9th. Right, so
we've still got quite a while.
Right, exactly. So that's me and Caroline checking out of Japan. Join us in the third segment. Me and MBZ have recorded a good fun episode of the Jukebox before I took flight to Japan, so enjoy that. And I'll see you in the past, but in the future, if that makes sense, after the break. Alright folks, welcome back. That was a really good segment you did there, Bally, on Japan. Do you want to recall again what you just said?
I don't know, something happened. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll
we
see.
are Time Lords, as we said in the first segment.
Of course. We're in the third segment now. That means it's time for the Jukebox. And as we kind of mentioned at the top of the show, this is a little section we do where we test each other on video game music, see if we can guess what game the song came from. And this time it's Bally's turn to test me.
This is our 8th Jukebox.
Oh, cool.
8th.
We've got a list of like ones that we've used as well, so we can keep track of not repeating.
Yes, last time you tested me, and they were Gum and Clive, Mario Strikers Charged, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Wave Race Blue Storm, and Big Brain Academy.
Cool. All right, yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
And I got 2 out of 5 because that was
all right, not too bad.
Very difficult lineup of songs.
Cool. Well, I'll hand it over to you, Bally, because you're in charge here.
Cool. Well, shall we start with the first song?
Yeah, let's give it a listen. So not really much of a melody there. A lot of
not much.
It starts out as very kind of like ambient sounds, and I was checking the list because I'm like, have we done Breath of the Wild yet? And I'm like, is this a weird like Breath of the Wild song that I haven't heard? I was clearly definitely not listening to you at all during when you were recounting what we did before. So it can't be that, obviously. It recounts to me something Celeste-esque to some degree, but I think that Celeste is far more synthy, and I don't think there's anything that is that chilled in the game to that degree. And I feel like Celeste has a very distinctive sound to all of the songs on its soundtrack, so it's not quite there. Definitely a chill game, a calm game. Feels like something from some recent indie on Switch, but I can't quite nail down what it would be. And there was one section in there that I heard, and I was like, for like 2 seconds, I was like, oh, I know exactly what that's from, and then it just like disappeared. So I'm struggling mightily with this one. This one is tricky.
Interesting.
Any clues you can offer? Anything to steer me at all?
It's an indie game on Switch.
Okay, well, I'm there. I nailed that part at least.
You nailed that part. I'll confirm that part.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what the soundtrack for Golf Story is like. I'm not sure it's like that. I mean, that is a very chill game. I feel like that's probably my best guess at this point. Chill game on Switch, indie. You love it. I'm going to put my guess here. I think it's wrong, but I'm going to say this is from Golf Story.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
That is incorrect.
I thought so.
I wanted to use Golf Story for this actually, but all the songs in there that I could find had too many like golf noises and
really? Because
they can't. Well, he's gonna get that when he hears the damn golf ball being hit, so I couldn't use that. It is not Golf Story. It's Stardew Valley.
Oh right, obviously, man.
So it's one of the more unusual ones. It's Raven's Descent.
That one doesn't like stand out to me.
So this is one of the fall tunes, or autumn, as we would say.
I mean, Stardew Valley is an interesting one because either like I know the song so well because it's been drilled into my head, or I don't know it at all because I had a podcast on while I was playing. Right. You know, like because I do that with this game. That's my category of like having not listened to all of the soundtrack. Probably.
Each season probably has like 3 main songs that play when you wake up. So this is one of the ones for fall where it'll just ease in.
Now that you say it, that one little trill that happens in the middle of that song, I'm like, obviously, clearly that's from Stardew Valley. Like,
Right.
there are elements in all the songs, I think, that have a consistent theme through them. That makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I like the music in this game quite a bit. I think that the town theme is great. I think the theme around your farm is fantastic. There's so many tunes, like walking into the bar. There's a different song there. Like, it does music really well, and it also does the absence of music quite well. Like at nighttime, when you're just walking into your house, you can just hear the footsteps on the ground. There's not really much music being played. There's good kind of use there and how that works.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it's
Stardew Valley.
incredible music in Stardew Valley overall. But yeah, you gotta. Them podcasts are really going to get in the way of the jukebox if we keep going at this rate.
Yeah, but like that's one of the things, because I played 70 hours of this game, and I think for the first 20 or so, I was pretty hooked, of just like focused on it, because the thing about Stardew Valley is one of those games that you can attempt to listen to podcasts with, but likely you won't actually absorb anything that's being said, because it has so many micro tasks that you're always thinking about.
There's a lot of systems you need to think about.
Yeah, and often you will have like characters that you're talking to in town, and so you have to engage with the dialogue and be focused enough to pay attention to what's happening and what they're saying. So I did use it. I think mostly there are kind of certain categories of games with podcasts, like the category of game where I can actually listen to the podcast and focus on the game is quite rare, but it's things like multiplayer shooters like Titanfall and stuff like that. The category where it comes to like, I need some background noise while I'm playing this game, which I kind of am absorbing, but not really, but it's kind of in the background, and that's kind of what Stardew Valley was, I think, was like, I usually when I played Stardew Valley, I'd pop on a podcast that I didn't really care about and didn't really have too much investment in, but wanted some background noise anyway. So yeah.
Cool. Shall we move on to song 2?
Let's go for it. Well, that certainly packs a bit more of a punch than the last song for certain.
What a tune.
Hey, that's really good. I've never heard that before, and I think that makes this tricky because my brain went in so many different directions. Like as soon as it opened, I'm like, Castlevania, like has to be Castlevania, but then I'm like, well, what Castlevania game would Bally choose? And there hasn't been a modern one that would sound this good, because like the ones that there would be the DS and GBA ones, and obviously I've played those, you haven't, you wouldn't likely pick that. Symphony of the Night doesn't have anything that sounds anywhere close to that, but it has that vibe about it, and it has that horror-esque vibe. So then my mind went Luigi's Mansion, but I'm like, nah, it can't be 3DS. Luigi's Mansion can't have violins that sound that good, right? Surely? So I'm bouncing around, and I'm like, is this an RPG instead? Because it has some grandioseness to it? Is it Octopath Traveler? Because potentially there's lots of songs in Octopath Traveler that I know. There are some that I don't because I didn't actually finish the full game. This could be from like a late chapter from one of those characters I didn't play, and to some degree fits the tone of that game but doesn't quite have the same sound. So I'm just all over the shop here, Bally. I'm really in 7 different directions.
I like that story. I like that journey you're on.
Yeah, but I went through a journey listening to this song to get to that point. Are any of those ideas anywhere warm or cold whatsoever? Is what I want to know.
Not really.
Okay,
Not
good.
really.
So I'm in a great place right now. Man, it is very, gothic. Definitely has a very gothic vibe to it. What's a gothic game that you'll have played that is up that alley? And I can't really think of one, honestly. There's definitely been some stuff on Switch recently, in the last couple of years, but for me, no, it's pretty hard to nail this down. I can't really make a guess because there's nothing that's coming to mind aside from those games. So I'm just gonna pass it on. I feel like I don't feel in the vibes today of getting these right. So I'm just gonna have to pass on this one.
Okay, I'll reveal it to you then. I think you might be kicking yourself.
Maybe.
Hollow Knight.
Is it? Wow, yeah. I mean, if I thought about that a bit longer and been like, what games have Bally played that are gothic? Hollow Knight, there's one that's gothic.
Hollow Knight that has a lot of silence and ambience in it.
Yeah, like when I think of Hollow Knight, I don't really think about music at all, honestly.
But it has an insane group of boss themes, and this is one of them. This is the Mantis Lords.
Is it? Man, I feel like when I was playing Hollow Knight, I was panicking so much at the fight that I didn't pay attention to the music at all.
Right. And I'm the same, actually. And there's a lot of boss themes from that game I was going through that I was like, these are great. And I don't remember any of them because, I was surviving, like just trying to get to the next moment. And yeah, so this one I did remember a bit. I remember the strings, the cello, the harpsichord, the way it comes together, the gothic sound. I did remember that aspect of it, but I wouldn't be able to replicate the tune or anything. But when I heard it, just looking for these songs,
I mean, like my first thought of Castlevania is very on point in that case because, like, Hollow Knight, basically Metroid and Castlevania. It is
exactly. But when you said like, what has Bally played gothic last couple of years? I was like, he's gonna get it. He's gonna.
I was there. I was like on the fucking precipice. You should have just given me a little nudge, and I would have got it. Oh man. You know what I need is I need to have just like a list of games that you've played on Switch in front of me. That's really what I need to do.
Sure. I mean, generally, I guess I go for ones we both played, but there's oftentimes I go for ones you've just played. But yeah, no, it's really hard to get the context because I'm just scrolling through songs like, well, he get this, and then I sort of pick this thought, oh, he'll get this instantly, and it's because it's hard to.
But no.
But if you're in complete isolation from just having looked up on YouTube Hollow Knight songs, how on earth would then be said they've got it? But anyway,
no, exactly.
That's the fun of the game.
That was good. That was a good choice because I think for me it is one of those aspects of the game that just doesn't get talked about because I don't think it. Generally doesn't really stand out, but then you listen to that song in isolation and I'm like, man, this fucking kicks ass.
It's
like
great.
This is great.
It's a good one,
man. Yeah, that's surprising. That's a good find for today. Is hey, the Hollow Knight soundtrack's really fucking good.
Go
apparently.
check it out. Go play that game.
Sweet, awesome.
Right.
So now I'm on full like thinking about Switch indies now because this is 2 for 2.
Switch indies. Okay.
Is this going to be the theme for this entire jukebox? Is my thought here.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Sure,
I'm sure there's some weird
3.
things thrown in there. Let's go for song 3. There is a section in the middle of that song that I know, and I don't know what it is, but I know it. I know it. I know it. It's like a weird rock version of a song that I know very well. And you know those moments where you're like, try to think about it, but like the music keeps playing and you can't, because you can't recreate it in your own head because other music's playing at the same time. I had that.
I was humming and hawing whether to include this because of what you just said.
Yeah, there's Fire Emblem music in there, or F-Zero. I don't know which one. That's Punch Out. That's what it is. I needed to get it in isolation. That's Punch Out. So this means this has to be something related to Punch Out. What is related to Punch Out? Is it Punch Out? Is this from Punch Out Wii? I feel like that must be what it is, because it can't be from the Super Nintendo game. Can't be from the freaking thingy game, the SNES game. The NES game. What else could it be from? I feel like Punch Out Wii is my best guess, but I'm doubting myself because it sounds like this hard rock thing that I don't know would be in that game. It kind of sounds like something out of fucking Excite Truck, to be honest, to some degree. I'm just going to go with my gut. I'm going to say Punch Out Wii because that was the thing that came to my mind.
That is correct.
Good, yes, because I heard that little
You've
part
slid
of
away from the right answer before in this game, and you go, oh, I think it's this, but it must be. So yeah, it's the theme for Mr. Sandman.
Okay.
So almost every theme in this song, in this game, is actually a play on the main theme. When I was like looking through the other boss fight themes, and I thought, will he just immediately know that that's Punch Out? And I thought, well, I thought this could be one on the easier side of the songs out of the 5. So I thought, right, I'll just include that, just see if he gets it, see if he notices, because it is a play on the Punch Out theme in there, like you noticed.
But it's one of those riffs that you just know instinctively, but I had to like isolate it in my brain and like sing it to myself.
Right.
And that's why like I was saying, and then I like sang it out loud and I was like, oh wait, no, I know exactly what this is. It's Punch Out.
And I knew that the heavy electric guitar was going to make you start going down Sonic F-Zero Burnout or something. I don't know. It was going to drift you away. So I thought this could be trickier than
that's a good
maybe
pick
on the face of it. So yeah, Punch Out Wii, Mr. Sandman.
Yeah, the music for Punch Out generally is just like, it's that song, right? Like that's the song for Punch Out, and then the other ones are just like, I don't know. Like it turns out that I guess they're all just riffs on that song because that's the song.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit like Hollow Knight, you're not focusing as much on the music while you're just trying to get those punches in. Survive.
100%. Yeah, it's all about just fighting the boss and just learning the pattern for sure. So that's kind of just like background noise, honestly, for most of it. Good pick. Yeah, I love Punch Out Wii. I think it is a really good like hidden gem on that system that definitely has a lot of depth and I think gets a little too hard to some degree, but that first run through is great and really challenges you and tests you.
It doesn't leave you wanting to go for the second run through and get to like DK and stuff. It makes you want to be like, I'll beat this game and I'm good. Like that was hard. Yeah,
I'm happy with my achievement. That was really tricky, but like I overcame it and I enjoyed it. Brilliant game. Very, very fun. Good pick. That was a nice one.
Cool. Shall we move on to song number 4?
Yeah, let's do it. Man, that's a happy song.
It's a very happy song.
It's very happy. That I have heard definitely. 100%. As soon as it played, I was like, I know I've heard this somewhere.
You've played all these games, then, that's the game.
Well, yes. Yeah, that's the point.
That's the thing.
I have heard that. I was like, oh, this is like some happy like Animal Crossing thing. I'm like, no, that's Animal Crossing does not sound like that. I was like, Stardew Valley. It's like we already did Stardew Valley. Like, what is a happy game that I've played that is on Switch? Because this is definitely.
Come on, we're Nintendo fans. There's loads of happy games.
This is definitely, yeah, you're right. This is definitely a Switch game, I think, and I think that my previous guess of Octopath Traveler has come to roost. I feel like this is from Octopath Traveler, and it's not like one that stands out to me, but I definitely know it and I've heard it, and it sounds like a town theme from an RPG, and I think that is the game, and I think this is Octopath Traveler, so I'm just going to shut up and say Octopath Traveler.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
That is incorrect.
This
is from Mario Odyssey.
Oh, God, that's why I've heard it a billion
times. This is Shiveria.
Oh, man.
So,
that's not even like in my brain for like what Shiveria should sound like. It doesn't sound
right, because I listened to this and I was like, this sounds like JRPG town music.
Yes.
so I was like, I'm going to throw this on in there, and if we'll see what happens. But yeah, I was very close to picking Bob Lane from Mario Odyssey, but I
feel like I probably would have got that.
No. Go back and listen to that music, and I think you would have struggled, because it is the most elevator music you've ever heard in any Nintendo game ever.
Really?
And it would have been so it's very generic. I appreciate this is quite generic, but I was thinking...
Well, I feel like Mario Odyssey is a game all about diverting expectations with music, because you think about the forest level, and it's just fucking surf rock. Like, it's like do 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 do.
I mean, I was going to go for that, but that was I think that was quite an easy one.
Obviously, like I would have got the game with that one. But like, like clearly I'd heard that music a bunch, and I'm like, I know what that is.
But with the big roly poly guys and they're racing around the track.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like that should be that area at all. But like trying to dissect it, like in a traditional like. Trying to figure out what the hell this music is. It's 100% JRPG town music.
Yes.
So you got me there. Like, you definitely got me, because that's what my thought process was. We will hit Octopath Traveler one day, Bally, and I will be right, and I will guess Octopath Traveler, and it will be the right answer.
Tip, the next one's not Octopath Traveler. Just
good. Okay, I won't guess Octopath Traveler for the next one. Mario Odyssey, man. What a game, obviously, but a soundtrack that is pretty strange overall, like one that I like a lot, but again, like just talking about that song, talking about the surf rock song, really mismatched a lot of the time with a lot of the music that it uses, but a lot of classic themes in there, obviously. I recall that like the Bowser Kingdom had a particularly good theme to it. I can't remember it now, but
it was very traditional Japanese-esque, I seem to remember, mixed with like Bowser heavy metal kind of.
Sure. And then obviously like New Donk City, the centerpiece for like the biggest musical number, like one of the best moments in the game. It's really good. It's Mario Odyssey, obviously. Like we used Breath of the Wild on the last Jukebox. I guess you had to use Mario Odyssey on this one. Like only a matter of time before you use it.
You got to use the good ones, otherwise you never get around to it.
But I don't know. I feel conflicted though, right? Because like this game is sometimes about just like trying to get someone to guess it, but then you also miss out on playing some of the best music, so you don't necessarily play the best music from the game.
That's why I was so chuffed with my Hollow Knight pick, because it was. I felt like it was one of the best songs from that game, but also wasn't just a song on a plate for you to get in the same way that I feel like the good songs in Mario Odyssey might have been.
Definitely.
Not that Shiveria is a bad song. I think it's a very good song.
It's great.
It is quite difficult to place.
Sure. All right. Guess I've only got one right out of four. So see if I can match your last time and get this final one.
Let's see.
All right. Nice easy one to end on.
Is that an easy one? Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay, so it's clearly a Metroid game, obviously, like that much is clear. But I think this is a unique one because I edited a video on Metroid Samus Returns and I used this track, and so it's like I heard this track a lot because I had to edit a video for like 7 hours of it. So I think it kind of got burned into my brain a little bit. But this is 100%. I'm not sure if I get this wrong, then there's something wrong with the world. This is from Metroid Samus Returns.
Yes, that is correct. This is the surface of SR388. And it's kind of juxtaposed to a lot of Samus games, Metroid games, because, a lot of the songs in them are very dark and ominous. But if you actually look at, and this is the same for the Metroid Prime series with a song like The Surface of Talon 4, for example, is that the songs where you're closest to your ship are normally quite happy and clappy and positive, and this is very positive, very synthy, very nice.
It's very hopeful, actually.
Yeah, and it's the songs when you get deeper and deeper that it gets a bit darker,
right?
More
and
ominous,
I mean, Samus Returns is a game about going deeper, right?
Exactly.
Like the entire premise is like you go further and further down, lowering the lava so you can access areas that are below the surface. So yeah, definitely. To some point I was like, has he put other M in here just to be a dick? I was wondering that, but I was like, no, the sound quality of this is definitely 3DS.
Sure.
Also, like, it kicked in, I was like, wait, I've heard this. This is like, I can hear the sting of like that like end bit on the exact frame of where like there's this one edit that I made in that video that was like me cutting between Samus in elevators to like shift between her Varia suit and her gravity suit, and that musical note, that trill, plays exactly at that moment in the video. So like that was a good song to pick for me, particularly because it was kind of burned into my brain from editing a video that took forever to edit. So that happens with some tracks sometimes.
Well, there you go.
Me.
You didn't have your podcast in that time.
Well, no, you can't listen to podcasts when you're editing a video, you'd say. It's like the worst thing you can do. Yeah, what a great game. I really enjoyed Samus Returns a lot. I think obviously like a lot of the music is just cribbed from previous games, especially Metroid 2 because it's a remake, so it has to crib music. But I think it does an apt job with most of them, and there's stuff in there that is, traditional Metroid. It's not kind of breaking any boundaries, but it's good. I enjoy it.
It's solid traditional Metroid, and I think it's actually, for a modern game, I actually thought harder than a lot of its prequels, which is normally the other way around. Normally it's the original games are harder, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure the original Samus Returns is damn hard and I don't really want to touch that game, but I found
Return of Samus,
sorry.
Yeah.
But I found this game harder than probably, Fusion, easily Zero Mission.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like some of those bosses are brutal, and I think like it does some smart stuff, right, with the saving. Like it will save you automatically before boss fights, so you don't have to go back from a save room. Some good stuff with that.
There's about 3 or 4 bosses in this game that took me ages. Like they were hard,
and they're fun though. They're like well designed. Like they take some time, but you know what I'm talking about when we talk about the last boss. But God, it killed us. I think in terms of just our hands.
My circle pad. I would have rather had a proper 3-dimensional analog stick for that one. I think.
Well, hopefully we're getting a Switch 2D Metroid at some point. I feel like we have time for Metroid Prime 4 to come out. There has to be another 2D Metroid before that game releases.
That's a good point. I think 2020 would be a good shout for some 2D,
I would not be surprised
2D
if a 2D Metroid is revealed at E3 this year. I
Oof.
think that would be cool.
Don't want to reveal your E3 predictions yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, for me, it's kind of up in the air because I think with announcements now, Nintendo like to keep them within the year they're going to be released. So if it's a 2020 game, then they won't announce it until E3 of 2020. But I don't know, there's room for the end of this year, potentially. We don't know where the chips lie for Luigi's Mansion and for Animal Crossing and Pokemon, obviously. So I think we can kind of say Pokemon's going to be November. Yeah. But the other two...
We almost have nothing for next year, so it might always be one that they hold off on. But
maybe, yeah, potentially.
Cool. So yeah, 2 out of 5, not bad.
Yeah, same as you did last time.
I don't know, I kind of thought... they were easier than maybe 2 out of 5.
I feel like I should have got Stardew Valley. That was the one where I was like very close and then I messed it up. Hollow Knight also, like, if I'd thought about it a bit longer. But I don't want to waste too much time.
I thought you were going to get 4 out of 5. I didn't think you were going to get Mario Odyssey. Looking back, I think that is a tough song to nail to a game.
Yeah, because it throws you off in a different direction.
But man, it's fun lobbing some songs at you and trying to.
I know, it's a good time. I enjoy it.
Workout.
The
journey you went on with Hollow Knight was great. I thought you were going to be like, and that means that it must be Hollow Knight, and just never that final pillar.
That would have been a great deduction. That would have been just like me with Sherlock Holmes and goddamn Ace Attorney.
You were like, I feel like it's a Switch game, an indie game, a gothic game, a game that Bally's played.
But
recently.
I'm like, I can't think of any of those. But it's because I'm thinking of my brain is being like Resident Evil Eternal Darkness, like 3D like horror games, and then I'm like, oh wait, there's a 2D game actually that fits better. Yeah.
But yeah, good
cool.
fun.
Well, yeah, thanks for that, Bally. Thanks for putting that together. Next time we'll reverse again. I'll be testing you, and that'll be a fun time. But and until then, we got to get on out of here. So let's plug things and get away. We have, of course, a Patreon where you can go and support us to get bonus episodes. Some of them are about music, where we talk about some of our favorite music stuff. You can find that at ThisNintendoLife. No, that's not a website. You can find it at patreon.com/ThisNintendoLife. And we would love to thank some of our patrons.
Yes, thank you to our 2 $10 tier patrons. They are, of course, my girlfriend Caroline and Atari Alex. And thank you so much to our sponsorship level supporter, Daniel V. We really appreciate your support. And thank you to all our other patrons for all the support you give the show, subscribing to our Patreon and listening to those 2 extra podcasts we do. They're well worth checking out.
Absolutely. You can find us in lots of places as well. You can go to our Twitter account, which is at TNL Podcast, to get links to our Discord, our YouTube channel, etc. And updates on things we're going to be doing. Things like potential backlog clubs, which we're kicking around at the moment for what we're going to do in the future. Maybe we'll have a bit of a think of that while we're away and kind of come back with some decisions on what we want to do with that. But yeah, you can check us out there. You can find me at LordNBZ on Twitter. Where can people find you, Bally?
Find me on Twitter at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN 91. And on Patreon, we should say, we hope you enjoyed that free episode we put out last week.
Yes,
hope
absolutely.
Like that. That was an episode of TNL Ranks. So if you did enjoy that and want more episodes of TNL Ranks, it's $2 for 9 episodes now we've got of TNL Ranks. So yeah, we might do that again in the future. Yeah,
that would be a cool thing. And yeah, you can find the show in lots of places. We are on Spotify now. We are on iTunes. You can download us on podcasting apps. We're on Stitcher. Lots of places that you can find the show and download it and listen to it. Subscribe to it, which is a good thing to do because then it automatically pops up and you can download it every 2 weeks when it comes out. Very convenient, very nice. I suggest it. Cool. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up. Maybe we'll give the email one last plug here, Bally, so that people can send in some questions for next time so that we have them ready to go. What is the email address?
Please send your emails to thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That is thisnintendolife@gmail.com. We would really appreciate a few emails in our inbox.
Yes, please do. So we'll get to those next time, hopefully, and yeah, we'll play some more games. I feel like next episode is going to be filled with a bunch of games because we've had this break where lots of things are coming out. I'm excited. There's some good things at the end of April, and Nintendo are ramping up for a summer of fun with Mario Maker and Fire Emblem, and we're going to be drowning in it before long. We're going to have freaking Astral Chain coming out. I'm excited. It looks like a pretty great summer for Nintendo fans, so looking forward to it. Obviously, pretty much a month till E3, almost. We're getting there, so exciting times ahead. So that'll be that. We'll talk about our plans for that soon, probably, and have some ideas. But until next time, thank you everyone so much for listening, downloading, subscribing, etc. And we'll see you very soon. Bye bye.